Well, hey, friends, welcome to another episode. We're coming to you each week with content that we hope is wise and insightful, helping you navigate the pandemic. Today, I get to sit down with two men that I respect incredibly. They're leaders in the Gaithersburg movement. These guys are the real deal. They love Jesus. They love people. They're in it to win it for Christ. And I'm just excited for you to get to hear some of their hearts and hear some of the ways that they put their talents to work to make our weekend experiences happen. Today on this episode, we've got Chris Wingfield and Dan Bracken here, and they help us make our weekend worship happen. And I want you to get a sneak peek, kind of behind the veil of how we make our digital online worship weekends happen. It's kind of a whole new thing for this team over the last 13 weeks or so, and I just wanted to give you a look inside how that's happening. So, Chris, Dan, thank you guys for being a part of this conversation, and appreciate you. I meant every word that I said, that I respect the heck out of you guys. You guys are awesome, and it's such an honor to get to do ministry with you in our pre-COVID world, and now in this weird shift. I couldn't think of better partners to make that shift with. My job is to help bring together a couple different teams to make our weekend experiences happen. Kind of from the parking lot to the room and back out. Right now, we're mostly in the room, and it's happening digital and pre-recorded in a lot of spaces. Chris, you are our music and worship director. Talk to us a little bit about what that means. What does it mean to be the worship music director here? Who do you lead? What do you lead? What are you responsible for getting done?
Yeah, first, it's definitely an honor and privilege to serve here at the Gaithersburg Church. And one of the things as being the music and worship ministry director is to help craft an experience for everyone to be able to come in and encounter Jesus, and to do it in a spirit of excellence. So that's kind of the summary of the position.
Yeah, and all of our worship leaders, all of our musicians, the song selection, the rehearsals, and all of that stuff. You also serve on our worship design team that meets each week, and you contribute greatly to that. Not only music, but your heart and your pastor's heart and all that stuff too. So
yeah, like I said, over both our campuses, the Fort and our Tip City campus, making sure, like I said, just worship flows smoothly at both campuses. We have worship coordinators at our Fort campus, and a worship team there, and separate band, separate from our band here at Tip. So I kind of oversee, both campuses, making sure that, like, once again, the thing is just helping people encounter Christ and in the spirit of excellence. So.
And you do it like a pro, so grateful for you. Dan, you serve as our senior media producer. You oversee the communication and design teams as well. We've been working together for almost like somewhere around 10 years now. It's hard to believe. So talk a little bit about what it means to fill that role here at Gaithersburg.
Yeah, well, right now my team consists of myself. I'm doing primarily video editing at the moment. We have another video producer. His name's Will Flora, and a part-time social media manager, Leia Ortiz, and a digital content manager who helps provide content for our website, the app, and other digital platforms that we've got, Shannon Sellers. And so the four of us kind of comprise of the design studio for communication needs of the church. And like you said, there's a lot of crossover between that team and what happens with worship, especially right now, and creating content for the weekend.
Right. Yeah, our team's always kind of, some of our team members work together in our weekly meetings and those kind of things, but definitely in this season we've been together quite a bit. There are also some people that aren't in this conversation, but that are crucial to the process. Shannon Sellers, I think you mentioned her name, Will Flora, Chris Benge, that serve in our production and communication and media, and then our worship coordinator at Fort McKinley, Adina Wingfield. She's been part of our team. Tim Wilson and Emily Schulte are serving as worship leaders with us, and there's some other, you see Rob Thaxton playing bass and Phil playing the drums. I think I've got Isabel Littlefield has been singing with us the last few weeks too. So quite a team that gets to put it together, and you guys help corral that whole crew so that we're all flowing in the same direction. We worked together a whole bunch during this season. I want to kind of start from the inside out as to how we craft a weekend experience. We have a weekly worship design process and meeting, and that process is generally kept flowing. But once we leave a worship design meeting, Chris, talk about again, from the inside out, you're preparing musicians, kind of monitoring the worship flow. What does that look like in this season? What decisions are you making? How are you getting rehearsals done? All that kind of stuff creatively, and maybe it was different 13 weeks ago than it is today. Talk a little bit about that.
Definitely different now than 13 weeks ago. Typically, once we leave the worship design meeting, I'm kind of thinking on the message content, the theme. We're currently in This Is the Move. So I kind of wrap my mind around that. Like I said, the song choice process actually starts. Like I said, I'm already thinking about 2 weeks out from now. So my first step there is I actually go and I sit at the piano. I'll sit at the piano and I'll just worship, just play. And out of that worship time, songs are birthed and popped in my spirit. And then I say, oh man, this song connects well with the message. And then I'll I have a little app on my phone. I'll jot that song down, keep going. Then another song will pop up. I'll jot that down. Then another song pop up. Then I jot that down. Then it's like, okay, I got to stop because it just keeps
filling up.
This list will keep growing. But then out of that list, I'll begin to just play those songs back to back. And out of that, whatever began to just echo in my spirit with those songs, then I'll take those songs and post them in Planning Center for our teams to listen to and view. Then from there, I start to think on who I want to schedule for that week. Now that we're starting to slowly open back up, the scheduling has become a little tricky. Early on in the COVID, the pandemic, we kept a small team, the same team for safety reasons, and also we want to make sure we could socially distance ourselves. It's kind of hard to do that with 10, 11 people on stage. And that's almost, so I began to post those songs, pick the team. Once the team have the songs, now we have a rehearsal for the vocals. So we have a vocal rehearsal. The band, I kind of lean on them in this season to learn the material, have the material just ready.
Show up,
show up and be ready to roll.
And they do great.
So they do a great job. I love our band. All our musicians who help out. So from there, their songs are posted. The team is picked. Then I send out emails to everybody to listen to the songs. We come to rehearsal, review the songs on that Monday. Then on that Thursday, we record on Thursdays now. We'll come together, run the songs. I'll do a quick check with the band, make sure songs are together. Then from there, we'll lean into the worship set. So it's, like I said, the worship ends and starts with worship.
It's amazing to me every time I sit down to edit. Even though you pick the songs, how far out in advance to when they actually air on the weekend?
Some 2-3 weeks sometimes.
It always feels like the right song. I don't know how that happens. Well, I do now.
You've heard the method? Well, you're tuned into the spirit. Our team is also. One of the things that you've done for our whole team, Chris, is you and Dan both actually have pushed us to lean on the Spirit's guidance, not only in the moment, right, but weeks ahead of time. And we've always believed that God is working as we lead up to a thing, any event or any worship. But you've pushed us, I think, even harder in really good ways to be even more disciplined and to get our stuff together weeks ahead, which in crises like these really serves us well, because then, there's always a pivot. But when you've got 2 or 3 weeks, when you're 2 or 3 weeks ahead, you already have some stuff in the bag. So that's a huge gift that you've been bringing. One of my favorite memories of our team was, I think it was the first or second week, we did a Zoom rehearsal. And so we had like 4 or 5 singers with you, or I guess with 3 or 4 singers and you. We were all in different places. And, the time delay was weird. And it was
awful.
It was it was fun. It was but I love the creativity that everybody's just trying to get it done.
Trying to get it done.
Thanks for telling us a little bit about that process, Dan. Talk a little bit about what a production setup and schedule looks like from the video side. That's from kind of the heart of it, the worship, the music part of it. You're capturing it all on camera. Chris Benj is capturing it. He's capturing this right now on audio. But talk about what it looks like from a video production standpoint.
Yeah, well, from a video production standpoint, and speaking specifically of what we produce for worship, I'll just stick to the song celebration set, right?
Sure.
It's a little bit different for the message and for like what we call community connections when somebody's hosting for the weekend.
There's a few moving parts there.
But for worship, we'll stick to minimally. Will and I like to do a 4-camera shoot at minimum. One of those cameras is set on the lead vocalist as kind of a default shot. So I'm always connecting with Chris, like, hey, who's leading this song? So we can just kind of set a camera and forget about it. While Will and I are more manually operating cameras on our own. And so we kind of work around that stationary camera, and if I goof up on a shot or if Will goofs up on a shot, we can always go back to that default, and it always makes sense to go back to the lead vocalist because they're the one who's leading us for that song.
That's right.
Right. And so the other 2 cameras, my weapon of choice, if you will, is an 85 millimeter lens. We have a couple Canons. Will's actually using a Sony on a gimbal.
Yeah.
Those are the stationary, or not stationary, excuse me, the smooth motion
they're
shots.
Like moving,
right? Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's kind of a robotic contraption that has motors that keeps the camera steady.
Nice.
And so he's teaching me a few tricks on that. It's a lot of fun, but after the first time last week, man, my neck was so tight, my back was hurting. He's been doing it for weeks, like no problem.
He's a
can't
beast.
do it. Hey, I can't. It's really tough. And then the 4th camera is a wide shot of the band. We have a wide angle lens that we like to put in the front just to capture all the action.
Yeah.
And on occasion, maybe we'll throw a GoPro in the drum cage or something like that to get another perspective shot on one of the musicians. So I take all of that footage when we're done. They record on SD cards. I go back to my office desk at home and transfer all the footage. Could be anywhere between 50 and 70 gigs worth of footage.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Bring it into Adobe Premiere is what I edit in, and line up all the footage. You got to sync all of that footage up, and then I kind of swipe through each individual shot. It's a continuous record for all the cameras. So
you've got 4 cameras, and they're all recording for about an hour or something like that, or whatever, hour and a half, maybe whatever it takes. Then you've got to siphon through all that.
Line it
up.
So
we capture it all, audio-wise, worship-wise, video-wise. One of the things I love that you, both of you, continue to coach our team, our worship leaders and our vocalists. Like, hey, the audience, the congregation, the participant, the person that you're leading is inside that camera,
that's right.
which is a really weird thing as a person who gets to sit in front of it, and usually there's people out front, right? But there aren't. So it's like imagining our audience inside that camera. That's been it's been a growing edge in a good way, I think, for all of our worship leaders. So thank you guys for coaching us and helping us think how to make this meaningful for people who are sitting on their couch or laying in bed or wherever folk are at.
Well, for me,
worshiping in very, very different ways than we were.
I'm such an emotional person, right? So when I'm sitting there by myself editing, I get to experience worship before anybody else in our church does.
You do, yeah.
I'm sitting there with the content that we've recorded, and man, I'll find myself just weeping, just sitting in God's presence. It's really hard for me to connect on the weekends when I've got my kids on the couch, But that's my God time, is when I get to just soak in what we've created.
Yeah, I love it. So it's all captured, but that's only part of the process. Then you've got, again, all this kind of random stuff. And our team does a really good job at cutting it really well the first time, but there is some piecing together that happens to kind of make a cohesive experience. It's a little different than a live experience. So Chris, talk about, you have all the audio then, and there's some secret skills that we all knew you have, but you hadn't really had to implement them as in your time here at Ginghamsburg a ton. But you're an incredible mixer and masterer, if those are words, of music. So talk a little bit about what you do with those files once Chris Benj kind of captures it all for us.
Once we capture, and during this season, we've changed the way we've captured worship. And I'll simplify it. Before, we would do just what is called a 2-track mix off the console to stream. Now we're doing what is called multi-tracking. Multi-tracking means I have a independent file from each person on stage.
Right.
So instead of just 2 stereo track, I actually have including the drums and stuff. So I can have up to starting off the session with about 16, 20 channels of audio.
Yeah. And you can play with each one of those channels, tweak it, add effects, EQ it, turn it up and down, whatever. Really make the experience awesome.
Yeah, so the first thing I do is, like I said, we record on Thursdays. After the Thursday session, Chris Benj uploads all the files to our server, and from the server, when I'm done at night, I'll pull them all, and I'll just load the mix. And once I load this mix up, on my computer, I'll just play it all back just to see what we actually captured that night.
Yeah.
And from then, I'll take that time to say, okay, how can I enhance and craft what we captured?
Yep.
So that is my goal when I open up the mix, is just to, it's all raw files. So I'm just listening to everything, mistakes and all. I'm taking it all.
Yep. And we make a few of those.
It's part of being authentic.
Yeah.
But I'll take that, and once I begin to craft that, I want to make sure, for instance, if the worship leader is leaning in on a verse, I want to make that verse pop out. So when you're listening at home, or you listening in your car, wherever you listen at, that you feel connected to that verse. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that happens to draw the listener in on the mix side of it. So it's not just a flat mix, of just all the vocalists, everything. No, I'm intentional about what I'm pulling out, to grab the listener's ear. Just think about watching your favorite movie. If you're watching your favorite movie, when they grab that movie, they're mixing that movie with you in mind. So they don't want the airplane to fly this way. They want the airplane to fly over your head. So that way it brings you into the content. And
a live experience, a lot of that translates in the space. But when it's coming through two speakers or surround, whatever, like it takes a different kind of mixing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you're applying all that stuff. That's awesome. And then you do a master. What? Just real briefly, what does mastering? So you're mixing. You're stirring the pot, and then you've got it all mixed the way you want it. You put a final kind of touch on it. What's that?
Well, when we mastering the experience, what that does is that's the final stage. Mastering is the final stage for the audio. And what that does is make sure that it translates well on all systems.
Gotcha.
And also there's called, internet tax, to where, what that means with your audio, for instance, if I make the mix too loud and it streams to YouTube, YouTube is going to knock that down to -14.
Okay.
So what I do, I have to keep that in mind. It's different with Spotify. It's different with Facebook. or in Church Online, any of your streaming platforms, they all have different levels where they want the audio to be maximized at. So the mastering is make sure that when it goes to all these different platforms, it translates.
So if I'm in my radio, I can hear it and it sounds good. If I'm listening to my TV, if I'm listening back to it just audio, or if I'm watching on YouTube or whatever. So you're kind of optimizing it, one big shot, but for all of the different.
Yeah, just make sure that it translates. Yeah,
that's cool.
Like I said, that mastering step is crucial. Like I said, once again, like I said, if you're in your car, and if I didn't make the tonal balance of it work right, the bass will be in your face, then you play it in your house, then the bass like it just disappeared. Or you listen to it on your laptop speakers and the whole band disappears because it wasn't mixed or mastered for smaller speakers. So you have to keep all the different listening platforms in mind when you're mastering.
Yeah, it's so fun to listen to you talk about that and to watch you do it. I learn so much. And there's also some editing and all that good stuff on your end too, Dan. So you have a similar approach.
Honestly, though, I could do whatever I wanted and hit export without a whole lot of effort, because without like what Chris gives me, video is 90% audio. Really
Say that
is.
Video. So when I'm watching a video, it's 90% of my good experience has to do can it sounds like. More
it's
than
a
what
lot
it looks
easier
like.
to close your eyes than it is to close your ears. And so watch yourself. Okay, at home, can you make me sound really crappy right now? Like, I'm just going to say something. I don't know what I'm saying. Chris is actually going to master this audio file, and I sound like crap. And now you don't want to watch this anymore, right? Doesn't matter really how good or how bad it looks in the end, like how good it sounds. If you can have a really immersive sound, man, that covers a multitude of mistakes on the editing side of things, right? So I enjoy editing. I don't pour my life into it because... he's pouring his life into the master.
At the same time, you and Will are working really hard at capturing some great shots. So what do you? So I know that you don't phone it in.
That's right. I mean,
he doesn't phone it in. He works hard. So
there's some intentional editing that can be bells and whistles, right? You add extra like motion if you want to, extra narrative elements, like you can use image. This past weekend in worship, for example, using some imagery. You haven't seen it yet. Actually, neither of you have seen it yet. But everybody will have seen it at whatever time we air this.
When this is live.
Yeah, right. But adding some images of some of the protest footage, and so you can add narrative to things, right? That's what I do in editing. But in terms of like actual capturing quality footage, a lot of that happens in the planning.
Yeah.
If you're intentional about planning, then production and post-production are like super easy. It's just kind of pulling those pieces together that you already prepared for.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the audio makes it for me. The audio makes it.
Awesome. Well, you guys are both doing a killer job. It's fun to hear you talk more and more about it. What kind of two final questions? One, what has been like the biggest challenge for you as we shifted ministry styles and kind of formats? What's a challenge that's kind of helped you grow or pushed you a little bit?
One that pushed me, it wasn't even the pivoting of everything. The weight that was that I was hit with was just the pandemic itself, the uncertainty of everything, and just the weight of the people. Really put a different pressure on me than I've ever felt. And the thing is, it's not something that you could take off, just dump. So really leaning into, like I said, the pandemic, just having that weight, then with everything else that's happening in our world right now.
Since that,
so that's been the biggest thing, is to be able to keep that hope in that personal worship time, because I still have to keep the congregation, the viewers, everybody online in mind that, hey, we still have to have a time of worship. So I can't just shut all the way down. So that's been the main thing, just carving out that time to to keep my hope and my faith up, to be able to pour back out. So that's been the biggest challenge during this time.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Chris. How about you, Dan?
The biggest challenge for me, I think, I've got such a wide view of communication, and I think what we're going through now is really reminiscent of when the printing press was invented and what that meant for the church, and getting the Bible into the commoner's hands. It led to individual interpretation of Scripture and schools of theology, and like there's an explosion of enlightenment and the age of reason, and a lot of what we experience today was a result of the invention of the printing press and really the Bible getting into people's hands. And we were already going through a major shift in society from analog to digital, right? Even before this pandemic hit. And right now for the church traditionally is, I feel, maybe 20 years behind in terms of adapting technology to reach people for Christ. And this season has forced our hand. We've had to adapt and be more squarely and firmly in not just a digital world, but the world has already been going from digital to virtual, right? And so what does it mean now to be virtual worshipers? What does it mean now to connect with other people in a digital and virtual space where we're not physically with one another? Much of the world is already moving that way. And so that's been really challenging for me, knowing what kind of a critical moment we exist in today for the history of the church. 200, 500 years from now, if Jesus hasn't come back yet, will the church look back on us and say, wow, they did it right, and they set a new course for human history? Man, I hope so. With everything that's happening today, and everything that we've learned about humanity leading up to this point, I think we're at a really critical point in history. So the responsibility weighs on me a little bit, but what an honor it is to be a part of that story.
You guys both have huge hearts for this ministry, for all ministry, for ministries everywhere. Is there anything that you would like to leave our viewers and listeners with today? Just a message of hope, or whatever you would say to our church as it relates to worship, or what would you say to our church today?
I would say keep sharing the worship experience. Share. Let's keep making Jesus go viral, man. Like just each week, when if you haven't subscribe, hit the notifications, get them. So when they pop up, begin to share. And that's the speaking to Dan was saying. That's our digital spreading the gospel. Digital way to spread the gospel is to share. It's the share button, and to just share.
Smash it.
Yeah, share it.
Thanks, Chris. Dan?
Smash that thing, man. Smash that share button. Smash that share button. No, yeah, that's it for me.
I love it. Hey, guys, thanks for sitting down. Thanks for kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit and showing us how it gets done.